Drummerly.com Unlimited Drama Series.
The first time I knew my marriage was over, my wife Julia was taking a selfie with another man's reflection in our bathroom mirror. I'm Simon Carter, and I used to think I was pretty smart. 38 years old, successful architect, nice house in Newton, Massachusetts. The kind of guy who reads the fine print and always has a backup plan. Turns out, when your wife is screwing your business partner, all that careful planning doesn't mean much. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It started 6 months ago at our engagement party. Julia, all blonde hair and Instagram perfect smile, was working the room like a politician. Her parents, Margaret and Charles Dubois, stood near the champagne fountain, looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Old Boston money doesn't mix well with self-made architects from Southie, apparently. So Julia, her college friend Carla said loud enough for half the party to hear, "Marrying for love or money?" She giggled like it was the funniest thing in the world. Julia laughed, that tinkling sound she'd perfected for her social media videos. "Money, obviously. Why else would I marry an architect?" The crowd chuckled. I grabbed the microphone from the DJ. "Good thing we signed that prenup this morning then. Right, honey?" I said with my biggest smile. The laughter died. Julia's face went white. Her parents looked like they'd swallowed their champagne glasses whole. "You're joking," Margaret Dubois said, her voice sharp enough to cut crystal. "Nope," I said, still grinning. "Ironclad. Julia gets exactly what she brings to the marriage if we ever split up." Which was basically nothing, but I didn't say that part out loud. Julia recovered fast. I'll give her credit. "Simon's so funny," she said, grabbing the microphone back. Always the practical one, but I saw the look she exchanged with her parents. And I definitely saw Eric Lambert, her so-called business partner, slip out the back door without saying goodbye. Eric, 40 years old, drives an Audi he can't afford, and has been Julia's social media consultant for the past year. The kind of guy who wears cologne to the gym and calls everyone buddy in that way that makes you want to punch him. "Dude," my friend Donnie said later, helping me clean up. "Did you really make her sign a prenup?" Damn right I did. I tossed empty champagne bottles into a trash bag. My lawyer insisted on it. "Smart man." Donnie paused, holding a crumpled napkin. "But maybe don't announce it at parties anymore. Julia looked like she wanted to murder you. If only I'd known how right he was." The next few months were a masterclass in slow-motion betrayal. Julia started having more business meetings with Eric, late nights at networking events, weekend content creation sessions that somehow never produced any actual content. I'm not stupid. I know what cheating looks like. But Julia was careful, and I was busy with a major project downtown. The new Hancock Tower renovation was eating my life, and I figured we'd work through whatever rough patch this was. Then came the Instagram posts. Julia and Eric at coffee shops, art galleries, charity events. Always professional, always just friendly enough to avoid suspicion. But I saw the way he looked at her. More importantly, I saw the way she looked back. "They're just business partners," she'd say when I asked about their constant meetings. "Eric's helping me build my brand." Her brand. 20,000 Instagram followers watching her post pictures of overpriced salads and workout routines. Not exactly Oprah, but Julia treated it like she was running a media empire. "What exactly is your brand?" I asked one night over dinner. "Lifestyle content, wellness, inspiration." She didn't look up from her phone. "Inspiring people to do what? Buy expensive smoothies?" That got her attention. "You don't take my work seriously." "I take work seriously. I'm just not sure what you're actually working on." She slammed her phone down. "Just because I don't build buildings doesn't mean what I do isn't important." "You're right, I'm sorry." I reached across the table for her hand. "Help me understand. What's the business plan? How do you monetize 20,000 followers?" Eric's handling the business side. Of course he was. The real wake-up call came 3 weeks ago. I was looking for my iPad charger and grabbed Julia's tablet from the kitchen counter. A notification popped up, a text from Eric. "Can't wait to see you in that red lingerie again." My blood went cold. I opened the message thread before I could stop myself. There were photos. Julia in our bedroom, wearing lingerie I'd never seen before. Eric's reflection visible in the mirror behind her, clearly in our house, clearly not there for business. I sat in my kitchen, staring at proof that my wife was cheating, and all I could think was, at least I have that prenup. I didn't confront Julia right away. Maybe that makes me a coward, But I'm an architect. I believe in solid foundations before you start building. So I started gathering evidence. It wasn't hard. Julia and Eric thought they were being clever, but they were sloppy. Text messages left open, phone calls taken in the next room. Business meetings that showed up on her calendar at the same time Eric posted Instagram stories from the same locations. "You're being paranoid," Julia said when I asked about her late nights. "I'm being observant," I replied. "There's a difference." The breaking point came last Tuesday. I was working late at the office when Donnie called. "Dude, you need to get down to Mistral right now." "Why?" "I'm swamped with the Hancock project." "Because your wife is here with that Eric guy, and they're not discussing business." I made it to the restaurant in 15 minutes. Mistral is one of those trendy spots in the South End where everything costs twice what it should and the lighting is dim enough to hide affairs. I found a table with a clear view of Julia and Eric in the corner booth. They were holding hands across the table. Julia was wearing the red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. Eric was leaning in close, whispering something that made her laugh. I took out my phone and started recording. "We should tell him soon," I heard Julia say as I got closer, pretending to head to the bathroom. "After your birthday party next month," Eric replied. "Let him throw you one last celebration before we drop the bomb." I feel bad about the house. He loves that place. "Baby, you'll love my condo more. And once the divorce settlement comes through, we can buy something even better." I kept recording as I walked past their table. Eric had his hand on Julia's thigh. She was playing with his fingers like a teenager. Settlement. They thought they were getting a settlement. I went home and pulled out our prenup. 5 pages of legal language that basically said, what's mine stays mine, what's yours stays yours, and if you cheat, you get nothing but a bus ticket out of town. Well, not exactly those words, but close enough. The next morning, Julia was extra sweet, made me coffee, kissed me goodbye, told me she loved me. "I love you too," I said, and meant it. I loved the woman I'd married. I just wasn't sure she existed anymore. "I'm having lunch with the girls today," she said, grabbing her purse. "Then Eric and I have a meeting about the sponsorship deal." "What sponsorship deal?" "I told you about it last week. The athleisure company that wants to partner with my fitness content." I hadn't heard about any fitness content, but I nodded anyway. "Sounds great. Good luck." After she left, I called in sick to work and followed her. The lunch with the girls was real enough. Julia met Carla and Paige at a cafe in Harvard Square. I sat 3 tables away, hidden behind a newspaper like some kind of private detective. "So when are you telling Simon?" Carla asked, loud enough for half the cafe to hear. "Soon," Julia said. "Eric wants to wait until after my birthday party." "Smart," Paige said. "Let him pay for one last celebration." They all laughed, my wife and her friends, laughing about taking advantage of me. "Do you think he suspects?" Carla asked. "Simon? God, no. He's completely oblivious. Too busy with his buildings to notice what's happening in his own house. What about the prenup thing? That was weird at the engagement party." Julia waved her hand dismissively. "His lawyer made him do it. Simon's too nice to actually enforce something like that. Besides, I've been the perfect wife for 2 years. No judge would leave me with nothing." Perfect wife, right. After lunch, Julia drove to Eric's apartment complex in Cambridge. I parked across the street and waited. 2 hours later, she came out looking disheveled, her hair messed up, lipstick gone. I took more photos. That evening, Julia was affectionate again, cuddly on the couch, interested in my day, suggesting we order takeout from our favorite Thai place. "You seem happy," I said. "I am happy. I love our life together, even though I'm boring and oblivious." She looked confused for just a second. "What do you mean?" "Nothing. Just something Donnie said." We watched Netflix and ate pad thai, and Julia fell asleep with her head on my shoulder. For a moment, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined everything, that the photos on her iPad were old. The restaurant scene was innocent. The conversations I'd overheard were taken out of context. Then her phone buzzed with a text from Eric. "Still thinking about this afternoon. Can't wait to do it again tomorrow." I gently moved Julia's head to a pillow and went upstairs to my office. Time to call my lawyer. How ironclad is ironclad? I asked my lawyer, Pete Morrison, the next morning. Pete had handled my divorce from my college girlfriend 10 years ago, back when I had nothing worth protecting. Now he was looking over the prenup he'd written for Julia and me. Pretty damn ironclad, he said, adjusting his glasses. Especially with the infidelity clause. If you can prove she's cheating, she gets her personal belongings and whatever money she brought into the marriage. Which was, according to this, about $3,000 in a checking account and a 2018 Honda Civic with a loan balance. So basically nothing. Basically nothing. The house, your business, your investments, your retirement accounts, all protected. Pete leaned back in his chair. Of course, you have to prove the infidelity. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos from Eric's apartment, the restaurant videos, the text message screenshots. Pete whistled low. This is good stuff. But we need more. Documentation of the affair, proof that it's ongoing, evidence that she's planning to leave you for this guy. How much more? Enough that no judge would question it. Your wife's going to claim these are taken out of context, that she was never unfaithful, that you're a vindictive husband trying to avoid paying support. Even with the prenup, prenups can be challenged, especially if she gets a good lawyer and claims you coerced her into signing it. I thought about Julia's parents. Old money meant good lawyers. What do you suggest? Keep documenting everything. Get her on record admitting to the affair, and whatever you do, don't let her know you suspect anything until we're ready to file. That was easier said than done. Julia was planning something for her birthday party next weekend, some big celebration at a fancy hotel in Back Bay. She'd invited 50 people, hired a photographer, even arranged for a live stream to her Instagram followers. It's going to be amazing, she told me that night, scrolling through party planning apps on her phone. Eric's handling all the technical stuff for the live stream. Eric's going to be there? Of course. He's documenting everything for my social media. Right, documenting. I spent the next few days playing the perfect husband, helped with party planning, transferred money for deposits, acted excited about celebrating my wife's birthday while she planned to leave me. The hardest part was pretending I didn't know. Julia would come home from her meetings with Eric, kiss me hello, and ask about my day like nothing had happened. She'd curl up next to me in bed, tell me she loved me, make plans for our future that she had no intention of keeping. I was thinking we should take a vacation this summer, she said one night. Maybe Italy? We could do a whole social media series about romantic European getaways. It sounds great, I said, knowing she'd be long gone by summer. Eric thinks it could really boost my follower count. I'm sure Eric has lots of opinions about your content. She missed the sarcasm completely. He's been so helpful. I don't know what I'd do without him. I could think of a few suggestions. Friday night, the evening before her party, Julia was buzzing with excitement. She'd spent the day at the salon, getting her hair and nails done. The red dress was laid out on our bed, along with new jewelry I didn't recognize. Where did that necklace come from? I asked. Eric gave it to me. An early birthday present from my business partner. Business partner? Sure. It's beautiful, I said, examining the diamond pendant. Must have cost a fortune. Eric said I deserved something special. I bet he did. That night, Julia was more affectionate than she'd been in months. We made love for the first time in weeks, and afterward she held me close and whispered that she loved me. I love you too, I said into the darkness. And I realized I meant it. I still loved my wife. I just hated what she'd become. Saturday morning, Julia was up early, getting ready for her big day. Hair appointment, makeup artist, final preparations for the party. I'll see you at the hotel, she said, kissing me goodbye. Don't be late. Wouldn't miss it for the world. After she left, I called Donnie. You ready for tonight? He asked. As ready as I'll ever be. You sure about this plan? Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back. I looked around our house. The home I'd bought and renovated, filled with furniture I'd chosen and art I'd collected. Julia had contributed throw pillows and scented candles. Soon, that's all she'd be leaving with. I'm sure, I said. It's time to find out what my wife is really made of. The Fairmont Copley Plaza ballroom looked like something out of a fairy tale. Julia had spared no expense, crystal chandeliers, white roses everywhere, a champagne fountain that probably cost more than most people's cars. I arrived fashionably late, wearing my best suit and carrying a gift bag with Julia's present inside. Not jewelry or clothes, but something much more valuable. A leather portfolio containing copies of every piece of evidence I'd gathered over the past month. Simon. Julia rushed over, looking absolutely stunning in her red dress. You made it. Wouldn't miss my wife's birthday, I said, kissing her cheek. You look incredible, and she did. That was the hell of it. Julia was genuinely beautiful, charming, magnetic. If she'd put half as much effort into our marriage as she did into her Instagram feed, we might have made it work. The party was in full swing. Julia's friends clustered around cocktail tables, gossiping and taking selfies. Her parents held court near the bar, looking appropriately dignified. And Eric worked the room with a professional camera, documenting every moment for posterity. Great party, I told him when he stopped by our table. Julia deserves the best, he replied, not quite meeting my eyes. Yes, she does. I hope she gets exactly what she deserves.
Her name is saved as electrician. You've been calling the electrician at midnight for 4 months.
How stupid do you think I am?
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Eric looked confused, but before he could respond, Julia grabbed the microphone for her speech. Thank you all for being here tonight, she began, her voice carrying perfectly through the sound system. This has been such an incredible year for me. New opportunities, new partnerships, new possibilities. She looked directly at Eric when she said possibilities. He smiled back like a lovesick teenager. I couldn't have done any of this without my amazing support system. My parents, my friends, my business partner Eric. She paused, letting the applause build. And of course, my wonderful husband Simon, who's always encouraged me to follow my dreams. More applause. I stood and waved, playing the part of the supportive spouse. So here's to new beginnings, Julia continued, raising her champagne glass, and to having the courage to go after what you really want in life. The crowd cheered. Eric beamed, and I pulled out my phone to start recording. What happened next wasn't part of my plan, but sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. Eric's wife walked into the ballroom. I'd completely forgotten that Eric was married. His wife Sarah worked as a nurse and usually pulled weekend shifts, but apparently she'd gotten the night off and decided to surprise her husband at the party. Eric, Sarah called out, looking confused. What are you doing here? The room went quiet. Eric went pale. Julia's smile faltered. Sarah, Eric said, way too loud. I didn't expect. This is work. I'm documenting Julia's party for her social media. On a Saturday night? In a tuxedo? Good point, Sarah. Julia jumped in to help. Eric's been such a professional partner. I insisted he dress appropriately for the venue. Sarah looked around the ballroom, taking in the romantic lighting, the intimate atmosphere, the way Eric and Julia were standing just a little too close together. Professional partner, she repeated slowly. That's when I decided to help things along. Sarah, right? I said, walking over with my phone still recording. I'm Simon, Julia's husband. I don't think we've met. No, we haven't. Sarah shook my hand, still staring at Eric. My husband talks about your wife a lot. I bet he does. They spend so much time together. Business meetings, content creation sessions, those long afternoons at Eric's apartment. Sarah's head snapped toward me. Apartment meetings. Oh yes, Julia's there 2 or 3 times a week, very dedicated to her craft. The color drained from Sarah's face. Behind her, I could see Julia frantically trying to signal Eric to do something, anything, to fix this situation. Eric, Sarah said, her voice dangerously quiet. Can I speak with you privately? Sarah, let me explain. Privately. They walked toward the hallway, and I followed at a discreet distance, still recording. Most of the party guests were too busy drinking and socializing to notice the drama unfolding. How long? I heard Sarah ask as soon as they were out of the main ballroom. How long what? Don't lie to me, Eric. How long have you been sleeping with her? I'm not. I found the texts on your phone last week, the photos, the hotel receipts. Sarah's voice was getting louder. I know exactly what's been going on. Eric looked like a deer in headlights. Sarah, please, let me explain. Explain what? That you've been cheating on me with some Instagram wannabe? That's when Julia appeared, having followed us from the party. Excuse me, she said, her voice icy. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Sarah turned to face her. Are you sleeping with my husband? I think you should ask Eric that question. I'm asking you. The hallway was getting crowded. Other party guests had started to notice the commotion and were drifting over to watch the show. This is neither the time nor the place, Julia said. Answer the question, Sarah demanded. Julia looked around at the growing crowd, at the phones that were starting to come out, at her perfect party dissolving into chaos. I don't have to answer anything, she said. This is my birthday celebration, and I won't have you ruining it with your paranoid accusations. Wrong answer. Sarah slapped her, hard. The crowd gasped. Someone screamed. And I kept recording as my wife's carefully constructed world fell apart in real time. You home-wrecking bitch, Sarah said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I hope he was worth it. Then she turned to Eric. Don't bother coming home. Your stuff will be on the lawn. She stormed out, leaving Eric standing there in his expensive tuxedo, looking like he wanted to disappear. Julia tried to salvage the situation. Everyone, please, let's get back to the party. This was just a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Eric said, panic creeping into his voice. Sarah's filing for divorce. This is a disaster. Keep your voice down, Julia hissed. Keep my voice down. My marriage is over. My career is finished. All because you couldn't wait until after your party to... He stopped, realizing what he'd almost said. But I caught it, and so did everyone else. Wait until after the party to what? Asked Carla, Julia's supposed best friend, who was now looking at her with new interest. Julia shot Eric a look that could have melted steel. Nothing. He's upset and not thinking clearly. To leave your husband, Eric said, apparently deciding that if he was going down, he might as well take Julia with him. She was going to tell you tonight at the party that she's leaving you for me. The ballroom went dead silent. I looked at my wife, standing there in her red dress with her perfect hair and her diamond necklace, and smiled. Well, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Good thing we signed that prenup, right? Well, you've mad. The aftermath of Julia's birthday party was like watching a controlled demolition in slow motion. Everything she'd built, her social media presence, her friendships, her reputation, came crashing down in a matter of days. By Sunday morning, videos of the confrontation were all over Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Influencer's birthday party turns into cheating scandal was trending locally. Julia's follower count started dropping by the hundreds. She spent the weekend locked in our guest bedroom, only coming out to make phone calls to her parents and her lawyer. I could hear her crying through the door, but I felt surprisingly little sympathy. Monday morning, she finally emerged, looking haggard but determined. We need to talk, she said. I'm listening. We sat at our kitchen table like civilized adults. Julia had clearly prepared for this conversation. I know how this looks, she began, but it's not what you think. Really? What do I think? That I've been having an affair with Eric, that I was planning to leave you, that everything between us has been a lie, wasn't it? She was quiet for a long moment. Not all of it. I did love you, Simon. I still do, in a way, just not enough to stay faithful. It wasn't supposed to happen. Eric and I, we were just working together, and then things got complicated. Complicated, I laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's one way to put it. I made mistakes, I know that, but we can work through this. Couples counseling, a fresh start. Julia. I pulled out the leather portfolio I'd prepared. Stop. Her eyes widened as I opened it and spread the contents across the table. Photos of her leaving Eric's apartment, screenshots of their text messages, transcripts of conversations I'd overheard, bank records showing expensive gifts he'd bought her. You documented everything, she whispered. I'm an architect. I believe in solid foundations. She picked up one of the photos, her hands shaking slightly. How long have you known? Long enough. Why didn't you say anything? I wanted to see how far you'd go. Turns out, pretty far. Julia set the photo down and looked at me with something that might have been respect. So what happens now? Now you pack your things and move out. My lawyer will file the divorce papers tomorrow. Simon, please, we can fix this. No, we can't. You made your choice at that restaurant when you told Eric you felt bad about taking the house. You made it again when you let him buy you jewelry. And you definitely made it when you stood up at your birthday party and talked about having the courage to go after what you really want. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were thinking perfectly clearly. You just didn't expect to get caught. Julia was quiet for a moment, and I could see her calculating, trying to figure out her next move. The prenup, she said finally. What about it? I was young when I signed it. Naive. I didn't understand what I was agreeing to. You were 32 years old with a college degree. That's not exactly a child bride situation. My lawyer says we can challenge it, claim you coerced me, that it's unconscionable. With what money? You're unemployed, remember? Your Instagram career just imploded, and your boyfriend's getting divorced. Who's going to pay for this legal challenge? She didn't answer, but I could see the wheels turning. Your parents, I said. You're going to run home to mommy and daddy and let them fund your lawsuit. They want to help. I'm sure they do. Old money hates new money, and they never liked me anyway. This is their chance to put the uppity architect in his place. Julia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. Eric? I asked. He wants to meet, to talk about everything. How romantic. Your first official date as a couple. It's not like that, isn't it? You're both free now. You can finally be together without all that pesky sneaking around. She stood up abruptly. I need to get some air. Take your time. But Julia, she paused at the door. Pack light. You're only entitled to what you brought into the marriage. After she left, I called Donnie. How you holding up? He asked. Better than expected. It's almost a relief, having it out in the open. What's your wife's next move? Legal challenge to the prenup. Her parents will fund it. Can they win? Maybe. Depends on the judge, the lawyers, how sympathetic Julia looks on the stand. I walked to the window and watched her drive away in the Honda Civic she'd be keeping. But I've got a few more cards to play, such as, did I mention that Eric's wife Sarah is a nurse? Yeah, so? So nurses work at hospitals that treat wealthy patients. Patients like Charles Dubois, Julia's father. Donnie was quiet for a moment. Please tell me you're not thinking what I think you're thinking. I'm not thinking anything. I'm just saying that Boston's a small town, and people talk. Simon, did you know that Charles Dubois had a minor heart episode last month? Spent 2 days at Mass General for observation. Sarah works at Mass General. What are you getting at? Nothing specific. Just that medical professionals see a lot of things, hear a lot of conversations. And right now, Sarah's probably feeling pretty chatty about the people who ruined her marriage. The next few days were a masterclass in social destruction. Julia's story was everywhere. Local news, gossip blogs, social media. Her remaining brand partnerships evaporated overnight. The athleisure company that was supposedly going to sponsor her content released a statement distancing themselves from individuals whose personal conduct doesn't align with our brand values. Eric wasn't faring much better. His photography business dried up as word spread about his involvement in the scandal. His wife's divorce lawyer was reportedly seeking a significant settlement, claiming emotional distress and damage to her reputation. But the real blow came Thursday morning. I was having coffee and reading the news when Julia burst through the front door, her face red with anger. You bastard, she said. Good morning to you too. Coffee? You know what you did. I'm afraid you'll have to be more specific. She threw a newspaper on the table. The headline read, Prominent Boston Family Embroiled in Daughter's Cheating Scandal. The article was devastating. It detailed Julia's affair, the birthday party confrontation, and most damaging of all, quotes from a hospital source describing how Charles Dubois had confided his embarrassment about his daughter's behavior to medical staff during his recent stay.
Yeah, Sarah, Julia said. I wouldn't know.
I don't read the gossip pages. Don't lie to me. You orchestrated this. I documented your affair and filed for divorce. Everything else is just natural consequences. Natural consequences. My father is humiliated. My mother won't leave the house. Our family's reputation is destroyed. Your family's reputation is based on your behavior, not mine. Julia sank into a chair, looking defeated. They're cutting me off. Who? My parents. They say they can't support someone who's brought such shame to the family name. She laughed bitterly. Apparently, adultery is fine as long as you don't get caught on video. So no legal challenge to the prenup? Not unless I can find another way to pay for it. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, I could hear our neighbor Mrs. Patterson talking loudly on her phone about that awful woman next door who cheated on her lovely husband. I really did love you, Julia said quietly. I know, just not enough. What happens now? I pulled out a manila envelope and slid it across the table. Divorce papers. Sign them and this all goes away quietly. Fight them and I'll make sure every detail of your affair becomes public record. Julia opened the envelope and scanned the documents. This is everything? I get nothing? You get your personal belongings, your car, and your freedom. That's more than some people get. Where am I supposed to go? That's not really my problem anymore. She signed the papers with shaking hands. For what it's worth, she said, standing to leave. You're not the man I thought I married. Neither are you. After she left, I poured myself another cup of coffee and looked around my house. Our house. My house again. It was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in months, it felt like home. My phone rang. Donnie, it's done? He asked. It's done. How do you feel? I thought about it. Like I just finished a really difficult construction project. Exhausted, but satisfied. Any regrets? Just one. I should have charged admission to that birthday party. We could have made a fortune. Donnie laughed. So what's next? I walked to my home office and looked at the architectural plans spread across my desk. The Hancock Tower renovation was nearly complete, and I had 3 new projects starting next month. Next, I build something new, something better, something that's actually mine. 6 months later, Julia's Instagram account was deleted. Eric had moved back in with his mother and was working at a camera shop in Quincy. And I was having dinner with Sarah, the nurse who'd helped expose the truth about my marriage. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't found out? She asked. Sometimes. But then I remembered that the truth has a way of coming out eventually. Better to face it on your own terms. Like ripping off a Band-Aid. Exactly. Quick, clean, and over with. Sarah smiled. I like that philosophy. Good, I said, raising my wine glass. Because I'm thinking of making it a permanent part of my life. We toasted to new beginnings, fresh starts, and the kind of honesty that builds lasting foundations. After all, I'm an architect. I know the importance of getting the foundation right.